Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode 1 of the My Body, My Vision podcast, Affirmations for Connection, Love, and Healing. I'm your host, Tamara Kellum, and I'm truly so excited to be sharing this work with you. And if you can probably hear the smile on my face, if only you could see it. So thank you so much for listening and thank you for being here. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm a certified personal trainer, group exercise leader, and behavior change specialist. I lost over 100 pounds through diet and exercise over 13 years ago, and I've maintained a healthy lifestyle for the most part this entire time. And you can learn more about me, my guided journal, which is available on Amazon, and the different coaching services that I provide on my website at www.mybodymyvision.com. So anyway, without further delay, I'm going to jump right in with a brief overview of what this podcast is all about. So many of you who know me know how passionate I am about my own personal and spiritual development, growth, healing. So, I'm always sharing about things that I learned relating to weight loss, relating to fitness, relating to depression, anxiety, spiritual growth, spiritual development. I'm really passionate about my own well-being, internal well-being, my external well-being. That's like my highest priority. It's of the utmost importance. And because I'm so passionate about it in my own life, I just love sharing everything that I learn with the world. I love sharing and hopefully inspiring, encouraging, and motivating others to embark on their own individual journeys towards well-being and development and growth and healing and things like that. So basically, that's the premise of what this podcast is about. And what I will focus on is topics relating to its title, love, healing, connection. But as those things pertain to ourselves. So everything that we do and all of our interactions with others are a direct reflection of how we are interacting and being with ourselves, right? So what's happening in your outer world is mirroring what's happening in your inner world. And the things that we see in others are very often a projection of things that we're seeing or dealing with within ourselves, or maybe we're seeing things that we don't want to see in ourselves. And that's why those things are so readily apparent in others, because we're avoiding things that maybe we need to face within ourselves. But anyway, it all boils down to self, right? A lot of us want to be remembered for impacting our communities, our families, our world in some way, shape, or form. And that work really starts with the difference that you're making in your own life first, right? So I'm really, really big on relationship with self. And so a lot of the things that we'll talk about will encompass self-development, self-love, self-care, forgiveness, things like that. So I'm going to touch on all aspects of well-being, right? So this includes physical health, emotional well-being, and developing a rich mindset, all of which continues to foster self-love, connection, and healing. Each podcast will center on a specific affirmation, which I encourage you to focus on during the week. And this affirmation will be the topic of the podcast and will drive the discussion in the podcast. So since this is pre-recorded, I will not be able to take live questions, but I was able to ask my followers to submit questions regarding today's affirmation. So I'll touch on those later. And as I continue to grow and develop this podcast, I'll transition into live recordings. Yay, so exciting. So I'm going to jump right into today's affirmation. It's on forgiveness and self-care, and it is, I'm going to take a deep breath, and I want you all to just take a deep breath. As a matter of fact, before I dive in, let's just take a few seconds to get grounded. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, try to find the stillness in your body. Try to find there's a stillness inside of you. There's a still space within you, right? And we find that stillness through our breath. So, whatever you're doing, wherever you are right now, see if you can just get still for a second and take a deep breath in and exhale. And just to take a few seconds right now, just to focus on your breathing. Breathe at your own pace, breathe comfortably. And what you're doing is you're inhaling stillness, light, love, the ability to focus, right? You're inhaling all that is good in this moment, whatever's wanted and needed. If it's peace of mind, inhale peace of mind. If it's clarity, you're inhaling clarity. And as you exhale, you're exhaling all of the things that are weighing you down in this moment, all of those negative thoughts, all of your burdens, everything that's stressing you out, whatever's making you anxious. Just release it with your exhale. Let it go. And really get still and present. Because when I say this affirmation, I really, really, really want you to hear it and for it to land. And I don't want it to land the way a piece of paper lands on the street and the wind carries it and it gets, carried away and it doesn't really take hold. So what I want to do is I want the affirmation to land and to take root. I want it to get rooted in you. So I want you to be clear and grounded, right? So now that we've taken a few deep cleansing breaths and hopefully we're a bit more still, quiet, and more receptive, I'm going to state the affirmation. And the affirmation is, I forgive myself for the times I have chosen not to honor my needs and choose to practice self-care in every area of my life. I am worthy. I forgive myself for the times I have chosen not to honor my needs and choose to practice self-care in every area of my life. I am worthy. I'm going to say it one more time. I forgive myself for the times I have chosen not to honor my needs and choose to practice self-care in every area of my life. I am worthy. So that's this week's affirmation. And we're going to delve into it. I'm going to get very granular with the context of this affirmation, right? Because we tend to throw terms around, we throw pretty words around that sound good, but we may not be connecting to the meaning inside of the statements and inside of the words. It's like buried treasure. And we're going to dig deep in order to find the gold. We have to dig deep in order to find the richness in these words. So that's what I really want to, I'm going to break down the definitions of each of the words because I want you to understand the context I'm hoping that I can deliver the right context, deliver these words in the right context to you, right? Again, I don't want this to land lightly and then scatter, but I really want this to land in you so that it grows roots and takes hold in your mind, okay? So I forgive myself, right? So what is forgiveness? Ooh, such a loaded, triggering word. Oh man, you say the word forgiveness and people, they sigh, they roll their eyes, they suck their teeth. They're completely over the conversation before it even begins. The minute the word forgiveness comes out of your mouth, right? And I get it. I get how difficult a concept it can be. What happens is we hear the word forgiveness and we associate it with letting someone off the hook, letting people get away with what they did. Because we want retribution. And that's what we're taught. We're taught that someone steals from you, that they need to make it right by returning what they took. Right? So that's a tangible example. But unfortunately, the things that people steal from us when they hurt us, these are intangibles that we can't get back. We can't get back the peace of mind that we allowed them to take from us. We can't get back the time that we gave to them. We can't take back the trust that we gave them. And if you hear the language that I'm using, I'm being very specific in saying that we allow, these are things that we give. We give people our trust. We give people our time. We give people our vulnerability, right? And what happens is when they betray us, we can't, these are intangibles that we gave that we can't get back. We can't get those things back. And what we're really upset about is ourselves. We're really upset about that we let our guard down, that we trusted, that we gave intangibles that we can't get back. And the issue with that is in believing that someone took something from you that you can't get back, you're leaning on a scarcity mindset, right? As if your reserves of trust and love and peace are limited. But the reality is, when you lean towards an abundance mindset, then you know that your reserves of these intangible gifts and treasures are limitless. It's unbounded. Your capacity to give is unbounded. It is completely limitless. Limitless. When it comes to forgiveness, first thing that we want to do is recognize that we gave. No one, very few, unless you're like a child and you went through something really horrific, you went through some type of trauma, which I can relate to. As an adult, for the most part, the situations that we experience betrayal, we're really upset about something that we gave. It's something that we allowed, not intentionally, for the most part. Sometimes it is subconsciously, intentionally, but realizing that your anger most likely is not towards that person. It's very likely towards yourself, right? We're upset about something that we gave, and we're upset because we're leaning towards a scarcity mindset. That our reserves are limited and that we can't be replenished. That trust can't be replenished. When you access abundance, you tap into the limitless resources available to you. There are an unlimited number of resources available to you to fill you up, right? So that's one step towards accessing forgiveness. When you lean towards abundance, it removes your need for retribution. So it removes your need to have someone replace something that you feel they took from you, or to have someone replace something you gave away, knowing that it's already being replenished in every moment. It's like having a bank account where whenever you make a withdrawal, the funds that were removed are automatically replenished and then some. This is about trust. And when you have access to this level of trust in whatever it is you believe, the universe, God, higher power, spirit, even yourself, then it removes that need for retribution, to the need to make someone pay. Because that's normally the anger associated with forgiveness. It's the need to make someone pay. Now, I looked up the definition of forgiveness before I began to record this. And the definition that stood out to me, the context that I want to deliver to you is cancel a debt. To forgive is to cancel a debt. And when we talk about forgiveness as it relates to this affirmation, it's canceling a debt that you are holding against yourself. It is stop making yourself feel that you need to pay. Right? Because again, there are things that were taken, quotes and quotes, taken from us. Normally because we left the storehouse doors open and we let people run in and ransack our internal spaces. And so we feel that we're responsible. And so we're angry with ourselves. And we feel this need to make ourselves pay. And then that gets projected onto others and we feel others need to pay. We need to make others pay. We need retribution. But here we talk about canceling that debt. Stop walking around feeling like you owe people anything, or that you owe yourself anything other than your unlimited love and care. Cancel the debt. Cancel the debt against yourself. And in the context of self-forgiveness, stop holding yourself responsible for being unable to give yourself something you didn't have to give yourself at the time. Let me repeat that. In the context of self-forgiveness, stop holding yourself responsible for being unable to give yourself something you didn't have to give yourself at the time. So a lot of us were upset because we're taking responsibility for things that happened. Oh, I allowed such and such to use me. I allowed such and such to betray me. I'm responsible for the hurt that I experienced, right? And we're angry. We're angry with ourselves and we're angry at people. And the anger is masking fear that is going to happen again. Fear that if we let down that guard, if we stop holding ourselves and everyone accountable for the wrongdoing that was done, then that will make us easy targets. But hear me. We need to let go of holding ourselves responsible for things we didn't know. At the time that someone betrayed you, you learned something from it that you didn't know at the time. You learned something about yourself. You learned something about your boundaries that you didn't know. And you wouldn't have known otherwise. So stop beating yourself up for not knowing something that you didn't know. A lot of us are upset with ourselves for things that we didn't know at the time. Stop holding yourself responsible for those things. And I promise you, as you continue to develop forgiveness within yourself and cultivate forgiveness within yourself, you'll start to feel compassion for others. And you'll start to stop holding them responsible for their unknown unknowns. Because at the time that they were taking or using or betraying, they were working from a level of unconsciousness that they are not aware of or were not aware of at the time. So they didn't know that they could get what they needed without lying, without stealing it. See, they didn't have access to abundance in their own lives. And so they felt they need to steal and lie and cheat and use and betray. They're working from unknowns. And as you develop and cultivate compassion for yourself for the things you didn't know, it gets easier to develop compassion for what they didn't know that they didn't know. And I know you're like, that's not true. They knew what they were doing. They knew they were lying. They knew they were using. They knew they were manipulating. And yes, on the outer level, yes, they knew. And we've all done wrong. we've all been aware that we were doing wrong, but we were unaware of the unknowns operating within us that were inspiring us to misbehave. And once we got that clarity and that awareness, it's like we're brand new people. A lot of us, we could look back 5, 10 years from now and think, wow, I can't believe how much I've grown. I can't believe I used to think that way. You can give yourself the credit for that. Give yourself the grace. The more you can give yourself that kind of grace, you can give it to others and trust that, you know what, maybe they were acting up. Who knows who they'll be 5 years from now? Who knows who they'll be 10 years from now? Who knows what experiences they will live out and what they'll learn from those experiences and how they'll grow from those experiences. So again, relationships with others and the way we see others, they're all a reflection of how we are treating ourselves, how we see ourselves, how we interact with ourselves. Right? The key to all of this is radical acceptance. Because what really drives resentment is non-acceptance. It's not accepting that what happened, and we think that by being angry enough, somehow we can change what happened. But learning radical acceptance, accepting that you were who you were in that moment, that you knew what you knew, that you were operating from your best level of consciousness at the time, and knowing that the same was true for whoever else was involved. That is the key to letting go of the resentment, of the need for retribution, of the need to punish yourself, of the need to punish others, of the need to guard against. There's a difference between being able to discern and use judgment and say, you do not get to come into my space and you do, right? That's discernment. That's judgment, right? Not judgment in a bad, like judging, like you're judging others, but using judgment to discern who belongs in your space and who doesn't. That's very different from being guarded. When you're guarded, you don't give anybody access, or you make people work their asses off to have access to you, which is completely selfish. Radical acceptance, canceling a debt. These are terms that, play around with them, journal about it, see if you can convince yourself to let it sink in a little bit. Give it, if you're extremely resistant to what I'm saying, then your spirit is probably craving it the hardest. These words, your spirit is probably craving this message the most. Just sit with it. And be easy on yourself, because forgiveness is an ongoing practice. It's an ongoing commitment. There are events that I have to forgive over and over again. Like we tend to look at forgiveness as a one-shot deal. Like, oh, I've forgiven you, I can move on now. And it is beautiful when that's when that happens. It's so freeing. You're like, oh my gosh, I got over it. I'm completely over it. And you move on, and that's great. It is a great feeling. But sometimes you think you got over it and it comes back up. And if it comes back up, you get to forgive it again. And this is not for anybody else's sake but your own. This is simply for your own peace of mind. Right? So I forgive myself. Right? So I stop holding it against myself. I forgive myself for the times I have chosen not to honor my needs. Right? So I used chosen, right? I forgive myself for the times I have chosen not to honor my needs. Now, I say that, I use the word chosen because just to remind you that we are always operating from a space of choice. And it's time we start taking personal responsibility. Too often we blame circumstances, conditions, people, the past, coworkers for our decisions, but we are always choosing for ourselves. And even if this is going to be radical and some of y'all are going to be like, oh, click, turn it off because you're going to think I'm crazy, but just hear me out. Even if we are pressed up back against the wall or we're coerced, we are still choosing. So an example of that is if someone has a gun to your head, that is coercion. Yes, they are coercing you, but you are still choosing. So someone says, eat this Twinkie or I'm going to shoot you in the head. Right? You're choosing to eat the Twinkie and not to get shot in the head. Now I know that sounds completely preposterous. You're like, I didn't really have a choice. The gun was against my, but even then, you can always choose to get shot, right? Like technically, we are always operating from a space of choice. And sometimes a decision is easier to make than others. In a situation like that, when your back is up against the wall, the decision is easy, right? Eat the Twinkie. But sometimes, you know, oftentimes we use situations like that where we paint ourselves against the wall. Like we are the one, like our back is not really up against any walls, because if you're truly operating from a space of abundance and limitless possibilities and opportunities, you know that you're never truly backed up against the wall. Sometimes we imprison ourselves through our limiting beliefs, and we make ourselves victims of situations when we created those situations. We created those circumstances. I hear people say all the time, they complain, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, I can't. And I'm like, you have a choice. Oh no, I don't have a choice, I have to do this. And I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, these are all your beliefs that you're choosing to believe. Right? Like no one, like, and I get that these are important, these values are important to you, but you're still operating from a space of choice. But so often we throw our hands up and say, I'm not responsible because I didn't have a choice, but you always have a choice. So get clear about your role in every situation you're in. And every time that you are not honoring your needs, it is a choice. So when you decide that you're going to not do your workout because the house is dirty, that was your choice. When you decide that whatever, you're not going to get as much sleep as you need because there's extra dishes in this. I mean, the excuses that I hear people make for why they cannot practice self care, they're hilarious to me. There's nothing that's insurmountable. Any situation that you want to get over or get past, any improvement you want to make, whatever challenges there are or setbacks there are, I believe there is rarely anything. I want to say nothing, but just to like appease some of the listeners, there is rarely anything that is insurmountable. But we'd rather make excuses and blame our situation and say, I wasn't able to do such and such because I was busy. No, you choose your schedule every day. You choose, oh, well, it's my job. You chose that job. You chose that profession. You're always operating from a space of choice, right? And this is not about beating yourself up, but it's about like really owning your stuff. Take ownership of your life. Take ownership. Take ownership of your life, take ownership of yourself, and take ownership of your choices. And then at least you can be empowered and say, you know what? I'm choosing to do this. And this because this is what I feel needs to be done. And you can prioritize and at least feel good about your priorities and feel good about the decisions you're making. You can feel empowered by your decision instead of feeling helpless and victimized by your own choices. Right? So we want to take victim out of all of this, we want to remove the victim mentality. And I'm really good at reading that in others because I was like, I could teach victim 101. I can teach a class on how to be a victim. Hey y'all, you want to be a victim here? Oh, I can find all of the ways that you can victimize yourself in every situation. And that's why I can see when other people are doing it. But I got really clear that my life wasn't going to change and I wasn't going to experience the joy that I knew I wanted to experience if I continued to be a victim and not take responsibility for my choices. So, hear this. I forgive myself for the times I have chosen not to honor my needs, right? So, every time that we are not honoring our needs, it is a choice. Now, the word honor, okay? Honor has, it can be a noun, someone received honors, or it can be a verb, to honor. And in the verb tense, in the verb context of the word, we're saying to fulfill or to keep, it's meaning fulfill an obligation or to keep an agreement, right? So I forgive myself for the times I have chosen not to honor my needs. In other words, I stop holding it against myself for the times that I have decided not to keep my agreements with myself and the things I need. We have agreements. We tend to think of, so every relationship is an agreement. Okay, there are unspoken agreements and there are spoken agreements, right? Within your friendships, there are spoken and unspoken agreements. Within your workplace, there are spoken and unspoken agreements. You're agreeing to dress a certain way. You're agreeing to get there a certain time. You're agreeing that they're going to pay you a certain amount of money, and every 2 weeks or every month, right? But what about your agreements with yourself? You are in an agreement with yourself to ensure your survival and well-being, whether you want to or not. That is just the price of being a human being. That is inescapable, that is unavoidable. And people think, that they I mean, you do have a choice. You can break that agreement, but you can't get away with it. Your body will let you know that, hey, you need to honor this agreement, because you will start to have breakdowns. You will start to get sick. You'll start to be tired, fatigued. You know, you will start to develop illnesses. I mean, your body will let you know, hey, you're not honoring our agreement. You're supposed to care for me, right? So I forgive myself for the times I have chosen not to honor my needs. We're going to talk about needs, right? What does self care look like? Self care is not just about grooming. Every time I hear women talk about self care, I see them say, oh, yes, I got a mani pedi, which is great. That is a form of pampering. And sometimes pampering is a form of self care, yes. But we're really going to talk about needs, your nutritional needs, rest. Are you edifying your mind? Right? These are things we need. We're talking about needs here. The biggest need that we have in our interactions with others is to honor our boundaries. And usually, what happens is we don't have boundaries, or we have boundaries and people are just crossing all over them, stepping all over them. And make excuses for deprioritizing our needs for the sake of others. Right? Oh, I couldn't do this because I had to do something for somebody else. Oh, I couldn't do this for myself because I had to do this for somebody else. Oh, I couldn't do. And I mean, that's all well and good if you have, like, if you're caring for a sick relative, or you are like you have a newborn baby, then yeah, you know um you may need your I mean, definitely if you have a newborn baby, your needs are your needs take a back seat to the needs of your infant. However, and just in our normal day-to-day lives, we do not honor our boundaries at work. And the reason that we don't honor our boundaries, we need to get honest about that and stop saying it's because we think other people matter more than us. No, usually we're not honoring our boundaries because we're using that to manipulate others into thinking or believing we're important. So I don't want to say no to this person, because if I say no, then I might, lose points with them. They may not like me. They may not respect me if I say no. And the hilarious part of it is, as counterintuitive as it seems, it's the exact opposite. People actually like and respect you more when you say no. When you say, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. Another reason that we choose not to honor our boundaries with people and say no is because, again, it's part of it is manipulation, and it's this need to be needed, right? Oh, if I'm not there, they're gonna fall apart. Oh my god, I need to be there. No, I need to do it. And the truth is that sometimes you need to like actually step back and give people the space to step up and take care of shit. Oh, I knew a curse was gonna come out. Sorry. But um, like, you are limiting others' ability to grow. You're limiting their growth and their development because you need to handle everything. You need to be in control and you need to do it. Stop doing that. Stop it. Allow other people to spread their wings. This morning, oh my God, my commute was a hot mess. The Metro North, they were experiencing ridiculous delays, and I got into work an hour later than normal. And there was an important call taking place, and I wasn't there to like facilitate everything, and people were emailing me, and I was just like the calmest person ever, like, y'all gonna have to figure it out. And normally I wouldn't be that way. Normally I'd be like, "Oh my god, I'm not there and they're going to be mad, and oh, I wasn't there. I needed to do this." And now I'm just like, "Listen, this is beautiful. I love it cuz this gives everyone an opportunity to start creating a contingency plan for when I'm not available, because there will be times that I'm not available and they need to figure it out cuz I can't be there all the time and I don't want to. I don't want people to depend on me to the point where I can't take care of my needs or I can't have a breakdown. We're human and we're all subject to having breakdowns, and it's important to acknowledge that it's okay for you to have a breakdown, or it's okay for, sometimes it's not even your breakdown, it's the MTA. You don't want to get people so dependent on you that you can't even allow yourself your humanity. That's about control. That is so about control. That is not about you being a good person. Don't deceive yourself. You just need to be, you know, the spine. You need to be the nervous system because that's what makes you feel valuable and important. But you're valuable and important just because you're alive. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But, start honoring your boundaries and stop saying yes to everybody and get clear. Like, journal about it, whatever you need to do, ask for feedback, ask your friends, ask your family. But, like, get clear about what that's about, what that's really about. When you let people cross your boundaries over and over again and you don't know how to say no, or just, even negotiate or compromise with people, you just automatically give in to their demands and their needs. Really get clear about why you do that. Be honest with yourself. Okay, so I forgive myself for the times I have chosen not to honor my needs and choose, again, that word, choose, to practice self care in every area of my life. Just really quick, practice is about repetition, right? People will sit there and say, "Oh, I try to meditate, but it just doesn't work. My mind wanders. I can't do it." Do you practice meditation? No. I tried one time and it didn't. How do you expect to get good at something you don't practice? People, "Oh yeah, yeah, I heard affirmations. Yeah, no, that's supposed to work, I don't know. Yeah, I heard it does great things, but I'm still depressed and I hate myself and I'm very insecure." Have you tried affirmations? No. Practice. Practice takes it's it takes consistent effort, even if it's just for 1 minute that you practice something a day. Start out with that 1 minute, but you need to be consistent. It has to be repetitive. Otherwise, it isn't practice and you're not going to get any better at it. And this, those of you who know me, you know that I was considered seriously mentally ill. Um, I had what doctors called a debilitating major depressive disorder and a mood disorder, anxiety. They told me that I would not be able to function as an adult. They told me that I needed to join a day treatment program, get on SSI, and I was 17 years old when they said this to me. I had to practice changing my thought patterns. I had to practice getting well. I'm now 33 years old. It's been 16 years of practice, and I'm still practicing making my mental health a priority in my life. And very oftentimes, it is about saying no to people. It's about, I can't go. I'm sorry. I love you. I want to be there. I can't be there. I can feel myself cracking, and I need to just be home and light some candles and listen to music and chill, because that's what I need. That's what my well being dictates I need. That's what my self care regimen might look like. It might look like taking a bath, or it might look like journaling, or it might look like crying. I mean, it looks a million different ways, but I'm very clear. I get to honor my boundaries and take care of myself and practice what I need to practice in terms of self care so that I'm not in the hospital again for major depression. And I will do a completely separate podcast about depression, because I am not insensitive to that struggle at all. But you know, what you practice is what becomes prevalent in your life. If you practice saying I suffer from depression, if you practice saying I'm insecure, I hate myself. I mean, I see it all the time, and we all see it. We see it on social media. Those the very depressive types, the people that, kind of find humor almost in like being dark and down and sad. But that is a practiced mindset. That is practiced language, and that is what perpetuates that is what will continue to perpetuate in your life, right? So the whole point I'm trying to make here is self-care is a practice. It takes repetition. It's not something that you're one day going to just get. I think we have this very, easy oven, microwave, instant gratification society where we want to know the instant solution for things. But some things actually just really take commitment and practice. And so I forgive myself for the times I have chosen not to honor my needs and choose to practice self-care in every area of my life. I am worthy. Okay. So, the last word I want to delve into is worthiness. Again, worthy can have different, have different contexts, but um, it's having great value, something that is valuable, and it can. What happens is sometimes, so there's two types of value, right? There's merit-based value, so that is you can be a valuable employee because of merit. So you work really hard, you've proven, you've earned your keep, and that makes you valuable at work. It's merit-based value. But there's also inherent value, right? And I want to offer to you something that you probably don't know about yourself, because you were taught to that you could only be loved conditionally. When your parents liked something you did, they loved you and they kissed you. When you did something they didn't like, they punished you, they rejected you, they pushed you away. And I'm even guilty of that in my own parenting. And I've been really practicing um, like compassion and grace. Even when my daughter makes me want to just jump off the roof. I love her to death. I love my baby. But we have our difficulties, and learning that unconditional grace and love and compassion, yes, it is a practice, but it is completely worth it, and it has changed our relationship and our dynamic, which is definitely important. She's turning 13 soon. But I say all that to say is that's there is merit-based value or worthiness, and then there's inherent value. And To get an understanding of that, think of something that you own that means the world to you, and not something that's practical. So not something that entertains you like your television, but something that has great meaning to you because of its history, right? Like, and it can be a crumpled up love note from when you were 13, right? It doesn't really add any, it's not a merit-based, it doesn't have merit-based value, but it's something that you value because of its meaning, right? And so when we talk about worthiness, knowing that you're worthy, knowing that you have an inherent high value as a human being. You can choose every day that you are worthy, or you can choose that you're not. You actually get to set your own value as a human being. But what I offer to you is that you are inherently valuable because you have a rich, deep, and meaningful history. You have there you there are so many dimensions and layers to you, so much wisdom and life experience, all of which is extremely valuable, not just to those close to you, but to the world. And so, because of that, you are worthy of the self care and compassion that you try to create for others. You are inherently valuable and lovable. So, I'm going to repeat the affirmation one more time. I forgive myself for the times I have chosen not to honor my needs and choose to practice self care in every area of my life. I am worthy. Okay, so what I want you to do is sometime this week, write that affirmation down, and I want you to make a list of what your self-care needs are and really get clear about what your needs are. Cuz for some of you the pampering aspect of it might be difficult. And so that might be, if that's a stretch for you, then you want to add that to your list. But if you're always getting mani pedis, but your sleep is horrible because you're up till 3 in the morning watching TV, maybe you want to leave the mani pedi off the list because that's already something you're strong at. And you want to get clear on maybe your self care involves establishing better boundaries with people. Maybe your self care needs involves, you know, learning to say no, right? Maybe your self care has to do with nutrition. Maybe it's about exercise. Maybe it has to do with your financial management. Maybe you're not caring for your financial needs. Maybe you're overspending, and self care looks like sitting with a financial advisor and working out a budget. So, whatever that looks like for you, make a list of your self care needs with this affirmation on the top and start creating an action plan for meeting those needs. Right? So that's your assignment. Let's see. Abdul in New Jersey asks, in regards to self care, why do you think less people choose to remain celibate? Okay. This is very interesting. I will say that this is more of an issue of your moral values and your beliefs. And yes, self care can involve celibacy, especially if you have unhealthy patterns in your sexuality. If you are having unprotected sex, or you're just not, if you're not honoring your boundaries or caring for your body, or you're being irresponsible, then that may be something for you to look at. But on the other end of the spectrum, sex is not necessarily a bad thing, and it can actually be a healing experience, and you might be able to find um, partners who care for you deeply and who you can have a genuinely healing sexual experience with. So, self care can look for you like maybe abstaining, which that was for me. For me, self care was abstaining, and not because I wasn't like sleeping around, but I just knew that sex was very loaded for me, and I wanted to do some healing work. So I've been abstaining for a year and a half. But for other people's self care is different. So whatever your sexual needs are, that's really a personal moral. That's through your own personal lens, your own personal moral lens. Moving on, Roberto from the Bronx asks, why is self care important to people of color, African Americans and Latinos? Lord, this is this is its own podcast, man. Listen, as a black and Puerto Rican woman, single mother from the Bronx, well, living in the Bronx, but originally raised in Brooklyn and Harlem, yes. Amongst people of color, the aspect of self care that we need to start encouraging in our community is mental health. We have so much trauma in our histories, right? In the Latino history and in the African American community as well. Our history is laden with so much trauma and hurt and pain that has seeped into our culture, it's seeped into our communities. And there, I mean, there's just, we're talking about racism, we're talking about discrimination. I mean, there's just so many layers to the hurt within our communities and the pressure to like keep pushing and being strong no matter what. And we're beginning to crack. And you know, we have our beliefs, you know, culturally we have our beliefs about mental illness and seeing it as a weakness and things like that. But I really think self-care for us is going to look like promoting and encouraging mental health awareness and making sure that we are clear about what the resources are around that within our communities, and sharing those resources with others. Vaughn from Brooklyn asks, is there a resentment toward our elders that a majority of us weren't taught self-care nor shown what it looks like? I'll say this, Vaughn. I'll say there could be a resentment, but looking back at what I shared about forgiveness, about not holding it against ourselves for things we didn't know that we didn't know, offering that same forgiveness towards our elders. Because my mother didn't know that she didn't know how to take care of herself, right? My mother was a single mother of 4 kids, you know, working full time and going to school, raising 4 kids with I think she was making like $27,000 a year, right? Um, she didn't know what self-care was. She didn't know that she wasn't giving herself the self-care that she needed. And so I didn't learn about self-care through my mother. I have no resentment towards her because I know that she did the best she could. And the same with our elders. They did the best they could. They weren't taught self-care. How could they teach to us, right? I think what's important in thinking back on our elders and what they did have to give us, it's important to really focus and lean in on gratitude for what they did teach us, and that the things that they didn't know and the breakdowns that happened as a result led us to learning what we know now. Because of their breakdowns around self-care, we know about self-care, and we know we can teach our children self-care, right? um, so that's it. Thank you so much for listening. um, If you want more information on upcoming workshops, because I do plan on bringing back workshops in the new year, I'm also working on a new book which will be published in 2017. Sign up for email updates on my website. You'll find the email sign up tab. Again, it's www.mybodymyvision.com. If you have any questions about this podcast, uh, feel free to reach out to me at tamara@mybodymyvision.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your feedback. And until next time, take care.